Right. Hello, everyone. I see it's time. So participants will gradually come in. But I propose to already get started. How about we start with an icebreaker just to warm up the crowd a bit. So I'd like to ask you, um, everyone, as we wait for the others, in your opinion, what are the most common mistakes when creating a pitch deck? What do you think? You can turn on your microphone. You can type in the chat. Akil, for example, what do you think are some mistakes?
I can answer, but I guess I'm more on the SIP side of things. Um, I think usually it's the the fact that maybe it's not necessarily speaking to the audience, like it's not curated or bespoke enough. And if you're speaking to a customer versus an investor, it would be different.
True, that's a great point. By the way, there's no wrong answer. The goal here is just to break the ice, right? So that's a great point. Yes, absolutely. The it takes time, right? We're always very busy entrepreneurs, and it takes time to update your pitch deck. And quite often, you just leave it, and you have like one general template, and you keep the same for whoever you present your company to. And I understand sometimes you have trade-offs to do with time, but yeah, ideally you would adapt your pitch deck every time depending on your audience. Ideally, even like so, like you said, you could have like a deck for your sales pitch deck. You could have one for the one that you send by email, right? That has a lot more details. One that you present orally that needs to be extremely brief. And ideally, you would go further and you would have like one per investor you talk to. And that's a key tip that's often given by companies that raise quite a lot. And they adapted, right, the pitch deck a little bit. Maybe it's just one slide, right, that acknowledges, like the investor and the thesis of the investor and how, showing like how their company like matches the thesis of the investor. That can be an easy way, right? Just one slide to adapt it. But yeah, very good. Can someone else share so their thoughts? No wrong answer. What are the most common mistakes when creating a pitch deck? All right, Tyler says not being concise. Yes, I was expecting this because that's absolutely true. That's one of the most common. Yeah, having like slides with hundreds of words and it's just too much, particularly for a demo day, right? So maybe for the deck that you send by email and still like people just don't have time to read. Yeah, so concise, really straight to the point. Purely presenting instead of engaging into a conversation. That's great. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Yeah, right. Like I like this bit of a story that Son Masayoshi, the wealthiest man in Japan, invested in Alibaba in Jack Ma because he saw stars in his eyes. That was like way earlier, right? And a lot of investors look at, trying to find the passion, the star in the eyes, the shining, anyway, a sign that you're extremely passionate about what you're doing. So yeah, uh, uh, show your passion, show your excitement. Don't just recite, don't just read in a demo day when you present orally. Yeah, it sends a signal that you're not interested in what you're doing. So yeah, very good. Okay, great. We have another one here. Lack of storytelling. True. And it's hard, but it's hard to put a story, particularly if you just have a few minutes. But if you have like, yeah, a bit more time, 5, 10 minutes and all, yeah, try to yeah, get a story going and it's gonna make your deck so much more memorable, right? We remember, particularly at the end of a demo day where like investors listen to like, dozens of decks. They're gonna remember the ones that, were really good at storytelling. Yeah. Lack of framing, not sharing enough, giving context about the problem and more about the solution. You're right. Yeah, maybe we could even like extrapolate and say like balance. Quite often, you know, there's also like the opposite, like many decks explaining too much about the problem. Anyway, finding the right balance. One slide about the problem, one slide about the solution, maybe 2 or 3 if your solution is complicated, or if it's really valuable, like you have really fantastic things to say about it. But yeah, it needs, you should explain the problem, you should explain the context, the framing, like you say. And at the same time, you should not try to educate your audience on the problem. Like sometimes I see like decks where like, the first version, half of the slides are about the problem. No, like you're not there to educate the investors about the problem. Yeah. Great, great ideas. Like that. How many people do we have? Okay, 15. Perfect. Okay, we had a small icebreaker. Okay, does anyone else want to share their thoughts? And that'd be great if you can turn on your videos. It's gonna make it way more interactive. Right, the goal for me today would be like to make it very engaging as possible. And right, so I'm gonna read the chat in real time. If you have any comment, thoughts, and it's always great to see your faces. All right. Perfect. Thank you. It's coming. All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening for some of you, maybe. Welcome to the Perfecting Your Pitch Deck presentation. All right. So today we are just going to look at, what's a great pitch deck? What do you typically put into each slide? What's the typical series of slides or so that investors expect? And I know you may think, I know that already. I've already done a ton of pitch decks. And even for those who think that, I invite you to really try to dig deep, in this presentation, in the session we have together, because even if we know it, there's a big difference between knowing what I'm going to show you today and doing it. So just take it, even if you like, yeah, okay, I know that already. Like, try to really like, challenge yourself. Did you really do it, right? Did you implement it in your deck? I've seen a few near perfect decks in acceleration programs in the past, but it's extremely rare. So, right, the goal is really to iterate. The thing also is that I can teach how to make a fantastic deck, but when I create mine, I always struggle. Right, so you could also like really know it and not be able to implement it yourself, just because like it takes some distance. It takes a set of third eyes to be able to put that into perspective and see it from an external point of view. Right. All right. So, and a bit of context. So here we're going to talk about creating a presentation deck for a demo day, right? So we're going to look specifically at, the format that we're going to have in November, right? In November, we're going to do demo days, investor clinics, and you're going to be invited to pitch, hopefully on site as well, definitely online. And typical format is going to be around 3 minutes, right? So for that, we're going to look at around 12 slides. And so the rest of these presentation today is going to be focusing on that. What I'm going to go through remains true for most pitch decks, even those sent by email. But of course, right, again, we focus on the 3-minute presentation, 3-minute pitch deck kind of style. Okay. What else? Yeah, so for November, of course, it can be used for fundraising. So a little bit of context here. So the goal is really for you to raise funds right throughout the year. We didn't want to teach you this in November. We want to give you like sessions in fundraising as early as possible so that you can use that to improve your pitch deck, to test, iterate on your pitch deck, to create your data room, your deal room, and to raise funds right throughout 2025. Right, so that's why this session is coming quite early in the training program, and more sessions are going to come as well. All right. Again, we want it to be engaging. You have any questions, any thoughts, write in the chat or raise your hand, the virtual hand in Zoom. It's going to pop you to the top of the list of screens, and I know I'm going to pose and address your question, right? So yeah, feel free to do so anytime. Okay, going straight into it. Here is the typical list of slides that investors expect, right? So typically, and again, like someone said, adapted for storytelling, right? Storytelling may show you that maybe right after the introduction of the problem and the solution, maybe you should go straight to your team. Right? Maybe you have like a flow of a story that goes really well. And if so, please feel free to adapt the order. But if you are not sure, the default order is typically this, right? You start with intro, problem, right? You show how big a problem it is and how critical, how painful it is. And then you show that your solution addressed the problem. You talk about the market, like in which this solution exists and how big it is. Competition comes very smoothly right after market. And then it's typically like a few slides about your financials, right? So revenue model, unit economics, financial forecasts, your progress, your achievements, your impact, right? So these three are a bit connected, right? What you've done, what you can do in impact, and what you plan to do, your execution roadmap. And typically at the very end, you have the team, and of course, your ask and thank you. Right, so that's the very default order. In bold, I put these slides that are the most important, right? So these ones, you typically don't want to skip them. The others, you can, depending on what you want to say, right? In the end, the goal, actually, can someone tell me that? What's the goal of a 3-minute pitch in a demo day? It's not a trap. What is the goal of a 3-minute pitch at a demo day? Is it to give everything, as much information as possible about your company? If no one goes, I'm going to have to name a volunteer. To gain first interest. Yes, very good. To secure a meeting. Exactly. All right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know it. Yeah. Right. It's just to pique the interest of the investors, right? It's not at all to give all the information about your company. Yeah, make them excited. Yeah, exactly. It's to get to secure a meeting, right? And how do you secure a meeting? By making them excited, by making them interested. Right. So you don't need to. So quite often, when we talk about 3-minute pitch, startups tell me, well, I need to select all of that. It doesn't fit, and then they speak too much. It's not concise, right? Like one of you also mentioned, and it's just like you cannot digest it, right? So no. The goal is just to YC. They even recommend to, skip a few really important things so that it's gonna look a bit mysterious. Right, it's a bit like how you try to get a date, right, from a partner, right? You're not gonna say everything about you first. You keep a bit of mystery, right? You get them excited, yeah. All right. So anyway, bold is typically what I would recommend, right? To always talk about, and the rest you can keep it for the second meeting, right? To really wow them with your progress, your impact, etc. All right. Okay, I'm going to go quickly on this because I think you already know quite a lot. For a 3-minute pitch, 10 to 12 slides max, right? Not depending on how light they are, or maybe you just have slides with just a title, and if so, maybe you can go to 15, but never more than 15. Anyway, as a rule, 10 to 12 max for 3 minutes. No sentences, right? So never make your audience read. And if you have a sentence, they're going to have to stop listening to you to read the sentence, right? So zero tolerance towards sentences, except for the tagline in your introduction, which is technically a sentence, but it should be less than 10 words anyway. All right. If you want to write a sentence, just replace it with bullet points, very concise. Right? No repetitions. Quite often also I see decks that repeat the same point a few times in a different way. Just it dilutes your point. For me, the goal also of a deck is really to wow, right? So to get to secure a second meeting, to pick the interest of and for that you need to really wow them. Each slide needs to be you know, don't write a deck from what you want to say, but from what is expected, from what the investor wants to know for each slide. You know, if you go back to the problem, what do you want to show with the problem slide? That it is a massive, it's very painful problem. Right? What do you want to show with the solution slide? It's just that you just want to show that it addresses the problem really well, and you want them to understand to describe right what you're doing. What do you need to show with a market slide? Only two things: that is really big, and ideally that is growing. So sometimes I see like slides for market slide, like with 10 numbers. You just need two: how big and how it's growing. Maybe you need a few more, like you do the sum, you have three numbers and that's it, right? Sum and Kager, that's it. You know, that's anyway, so really go straight. So think like that. Think what is the most important thing I can convey in each slide, and rewrite your slides around that. Right? What's the most important thing I can say about the market I'm in, right? Again, it's big and growing, right? And then you redo your slide. As few words as possible, as few characters as possible. I really like to iterate and to remove every time. You know, okay, this word, is it needed? Does it need to be like written in the deck? And I need to say it, of course, but can I remove it? And people just looking at the slide will still understand it. Yeah, then I delete it, right? Same with characters, right? Instead of management or experience, right? So more than 3 years of experience in management, shorten it to this, right? I see a lot of team slides with a lot of characters, and it's just too much to digest. It goes the same with design elements, right? If you have too many things around, like images, sometimes I see slides with like 3, 4, 5, sometimes like more than 6 pictures in it, and it just makes it. So pictures or design elements just makes it a bit too heavy, and it dilutes, right? The key for me is really like you want to avoid diluting the key elements of your slides, right? Again, for each slide, there's like only maybe one bit of information that's really important, maybe 2-3 points maximum that are going to like help to support your narrative, and they're going to remember maybe just one of them, and the rest is just going to dilute your message, right? So it's better to be like as lean as possible to avoid that dilution, and that goes through, you know, avoiding dilution by, you know, having as few words, as few characters, as few design elements, as few pictures as possible. This is all go quickly. Same, I think you know, right? So consistency. Try to have like one template slide, and then you just reuse it. The thing with the lack of consistency is just gonna make the conveying your message way more difficult, right? So if you have, you know, like titles are different places depending on the slide, fonts that are different, different styles, different colors, the grid, right? Your text is not aligned on a grid, and the eyes need to. It's just going to increase the hurdle for the eyes of the investor, of the reader, to, you know, have all the message conveyed to them, right? So really recommend to have like, even if it looks a little bit boring, maybe like very similar setup, a very similar template, and you just reuse it, right? So titles are the same place, right? Maybe top left or top center. Only 2 styles, one for your titles and one for your main text, right? So like here, for example, title here, and put your elements on a grid and have it read either, so typically it's horizontally, right? In that kind of deck, or vertically. And try to avoid having them like, you know, to go like left and right, and don't have any elements, whether it's text or pictures at random locations, all aligned on a grid, right? Colors, if you are not sure about colors, here's a really good website to help you find the colors that will work for you. Sorry, I have so many Zoom windows open that I'm struggling to find out my note. All right, perfect. Here it is. I'm gonna put it in the chat. So if you don't know about it, if you have a designer anyway, the designer will take care of that. But if you do not have a designer and you want to find like a way to find the right colors for your deck, it's a great one. Maybe take the main one, for example, the one of your logo, and then you can find the complementary colors to your logo with that kind of tool, right? Peloton. Really useful to find your complementary colors. All right, and a bit of grammar. I see that mistake quite a lot, so I just wanted to have a slide dedicated to that. In English, it's a bit counterintuitive, but the comma and dots are inversed compared to a lot of languages. So right, we don't write we're raising 100 thousands. It's a comma here, and vice versa. It's $1.5 billion, not $1.5 billion, right? For example. So I see that a lot in many decks. So just wanted to address that. Okay. Now let's talk about like slide by slide, what happens, what should you talk about in each of your slides. So starting with the intro here, right? Very, very simple. It should just be your logo, your company name, and a tagline and an impactful picture that shows what your company is about. Right, just these three things. Some people can add, name, contacts, website, etc. But I would recommend to keep it really, really, really light. Right, so this is, for example, .send, their pitch deck, very basic, right? The tagline, advancing document sharing, 3 words, super straight to the point, really clear. That's really great. That's a good one, right? Your intro slide could just be as simple as this, right? Your tagline helps you understand. So, okay, that's really important. So for those who don't have a tagline in your intro slide, I really recommend having one. Why? Because it's going to help your audience understand digest your pitch way more easily by framing what your venture is about. What you want to do is early on help you understand what the first slide, particularly the first slides are like, problem and solution. It can be a little bit hard to understand what your company is about. And if they don't have a rough understanding, they may be lost and wonder like, what are we talking about? What is it again? Like, right? So it really helps a lot to have a tagline that explains in just a few words what your company is about. It's going to frame the reading of particularly the first few slides. All right, so here are some examples of really nice intro slides. And I'm going to do that for every slide, right? So problem, solution, etc. I'm going to show you like examples of some of the best ventures we've had in our accelerators. All right, so here's Equo, right? Really beautiful. It shows what they sell. Right, big title, nice design, really good. Sesame Care, sorry, right? Smart and holistic solution for chronic disease integrated in one app, right? Clear tagline. They show you the product, and it still looks really cool. I really like the shape behind. I'll show you a few more examples. Right, so if you want to show a picture, quite often you want to show like a picture of your system. So this one is a little bit complicated. It's a agri-tech device essentially. And they wanted to show a picture of the person. We'll remove the background, right? That's a great way to integrate it really seamlessly within the rest of your slide, right? So, and I really like that. Replacing, nope, augmenting farmers' intelligence, right? That's a cool way to represent. A few more, reach, right? Reach your goal while being rich. And Dietella, change your diet, change your lifestyle. Right, this one is extremely simple, right? So if you don't have a designer, even with just a simple picture, you see that the picture doesn't have too much, right? It's a lot of white background behind them. It's good, like it makes it breathe a little bit, and just like a simple straight line between your title and the picture, right? Ideally, you make it like even a bit more. You add a bit of design, but maybe adding a wave or making the separation slanted, right? There's a lot of ways to design. Right, this one has quite a bit of design into it. All right, I think right, for the intro. Problem slide. What's the goal of the problem slide? Is to really talk about the key pain points. Right? Ideally, it's just one, but maximum 2 or 3. The goal here is only to show that it is a big problem that is very painful. Right? It's the only goal of your problem slide. Right? So don't talk about all the problems you're facing And the fact that you are solving like 10 issues, we will never remember that, right? Just like pick 1, maximum 3 of these problems, right? The biggest ones, of course, right? Have a few numbers just to show like how big it is, and maybe also how it's evolving. And optionally, you could talk about like, you know, the trend. Why is it now the timing? Why is it now really important? What has changed compared to the past? Right? So timing is quite often associated with one of the main reasons a company is going to be successful, right? That timing is right. So it's good to mention it. All right, this is Dropbox. Storage is a mess, right? The pictures is the equivalent of 1,000 words here. All right, here are a few examples, 3 problems, right? So I like this because sometimes I see like some entrepreneurs that are not confident in their design skills, and but you don't need any designs or pictures, right? You can do something that's really beautiful with just this. All right, so no cure, more than 90 million people affected, #1 cause of death globally. That's it, right? Very impactful problem statement. Here's another one. Again, you have like the typical like 3 issues list. And by the way, what is key here is like really to put the emphasis right on your numbers, right? You make them really, really big, different color ideally, maybe bold, right? So a lot of highlights. Same here, 100 million, 5 trillion, 90%, right? And shorten, right? They didn't write like 100, you know, comma 00, comma 00, right? Just M, right? So as few characters as possible, as concise as possible. 100 million lives lost. You understand it, like you don't need to explain all the statistics and have a sentence for that, right? Right, misconception of women capabilities, different style, right, where you have like the pictures behind you know, an overlay and the text on top of that, right? That's also a great way to have a bit of design into your slide. So you have the link to this presentation, and we're gonna send you like another link as well with a template, so you can also like keep referring to all these ideas. Sometimes when you get a bit blocked, I don't know how to present a certain slide, you know, I go back to that list and I look, hey, how did Great Ventures like present that slide again? You know, what are the different ways I could present it, and so you can use this presentation like that. All right, so here just one key problem and very impactful picture. All right. Insurance problem. Yeah, so here we have 4. Okay, I don't recommend that. It's already a lot more difficult to, you know, digest. It's a bit more difficult to digest compared to the other ones, but that's just a nice way to represent it. All right, moving to the 3rd slide, your solution. All right, so here I recommend, so again, as usual, as few bullet points as possible. Ideally, just have like an action verb and as few words as possible to explain how your solution works. Maybe you could talk about your secret sauce, could be very useful. If you do have, talk about your barrier to entry. What's your defensible moat? What makes it difficult for competitors to copy you, right? It's a great place to have that. So that's connected to the secret sauce, right? Optionally, you can have a value proposition statement if you're not sure how to represent your solution. So that can be very valuable for solutions that are really complicated and you cannot explain it, you know, in just a few words, in just like a few bullet points. When it's that complicated, then yeah, I strongly recommend the value proposition statement, right? So for customer profile who want a certain need, we provide this solution thanks to secret sauce, right? That's a great way to frame it. Okay. Right. You could talk about the list of features. You could show the screens, right? If you have a digital product, you could also have like a second slide how it works if it's particularly complicated. I really love this slide. This is Revolut. You will note that these are not screenshots. These are fake designs, right? I think that's also a key mistake that quite a few entrepreneurs do, and I did quite a lot, is, you know, putting a real screenshot. Real screenshots, the text are way too small. and there's just way too much happening in one screen. It just looks extremely busy and it doesn't convey the information of what that screen is straight away. So what I would recommend, if you want to put like a screenshot like that, have your designer represent what the screen is about by just taking a few design elements, right? Like you could hide the text here and you understand, you see like two currencies and numbers, you understand straight away that this is about exchanging currencies. Here you understand that this is about like sending to different people. And here you see like, you know, the credit card behind, you understand that it's about spending, right? So you could even like remove all the words and still understand visually through like fake screenshots, right? So really love that kind of setup. And ideally, right, so yeah, just a few words to explain each screen, like exchange, send, spend. It's, you know, it's perfect. All right, let's look at a few. Okay, so I think, so this one did, like, so 4 bullet points, holistic care, smart and integrated. So here they talk about the features, right? And you have like complete screenshots. They are busy, the screenshots, so they just made them like really big so that it does not look, yeah, too invasive, right? This is how it works, step by step. All right, step 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, like as much as possible, they started with the verb, so it makes the reading much more easier, much easier. Right, so order and pay on our website. Wait, return. And step 3, they didn't manage. Nasho, right? They talk about the features, but you know, so this one is they're selling a product, right? So this is a bit more like an e-commerce kind of view, but it paints a really clear picture of what it is. Right here you have your features. On this app, you can find a donor, etc., and these are the key values, right? Easy access, secure, privacy. This one again, screenshots. They kept them relatively simplified, right? And again, receive, monitor, manage, right? 3 verbs. That really helps. Okay. All right. Once again, if you have any thoughts, question, write in the chat, and happy to exchange a little bit. Right? Okay, market slide. What does it show? Again, I mentioned it before. You just need to show 2 things: that it's a large market, and ideally that it's growing as well. The most common way to represent that is by showing the time sum, right? With circles. This is very common. And if an investor sees 3 circles, they can expect them to be time sum. And ideally, on top of that, you just mention your CAGR, right? You could explain your hypothesis, right? If you have a bit of space, right? So it could be like this, for example, right? So the 3 numbers, and you explain, you know, what these numbers represent, right? So this is the size of the cars, motorcycle, gadget, trips and housing market in Indonesia, and out of that, their size was going to be this much, and right, they project, you know, revenues to be right that much. Is pretty much the same, right? So except here, instead of having like the time sum in numbers of in dollars, they have it in people, right? Again, it's impact program, so your market could also focus a bit more on the environmental or social impact that you have. Sometimes I see ventures that tell me, okay, my venture is way more complicated. I have like different business units. I have different sides to my venture. How do I represent that? So that's a simple way to do so, right? You have like the time sum in the middle, and you have like your 2 business units. Or maybe you need to explain like 2 sides, and here they want you to explain the supply side and demand side. And it's still more complicated, of course, but there's no way around, you know, like having that level of complexity in that slide for them. So that could be a great way to, if you need 2 parts, to show them like that. Here's another way. They split the screen in 2, and you have like 2 times some series of circles, right? So the Indonesia e-commerce. So this company was both an e-commerce and offering an enterprise software, right? So that was a great way to represent it and keep it clear for the audience. And this quickly note, so you have the CAGR you have 4 CAGRs. That is a bit too much, right? That I do not recommend. Yeah. Just have maybe one over here and one over here is definitely. This is a really beautiful way to represent the 3 circles, right? We like this one. A really beautiful design, and you understand you don't need to write down some, right? All right, one more example. So here they show the progress with a graph, right? All right, that's all for the market slide. Now moving to the competition slide, right? So typically in the competition slide, what you want to show is how you differentiate yourself from your competitors, right? So typically you're going to have one of 3 ways to represent that, and actually these 2 are very similar. So typically you have like the competitive positioning chart, your competitive metrics. You choose 2 values and you plot them so that you're going to be top right. Right? Don't put yourself bottom left. It's I see some do that. Put yourself top right. Pick the 2 values that you differentiate yourself. You use to differentiate yourself from the rest of your competition. Right? So for Revolut is the use cases and the easiness, the cost effectiveness of the solution, and they're going to be over here. This is a bit the same, right? You choose your 2 values, your two axes. This is a collaboration versus sales, and this is self-serve versus direct sales. And DocSense shows that they're top right again. In the end, it's very similar to this. Right? You just put them in quadrants. The second way to present this slide is with that kind of list, right? Where you have a list of features or values in the first column. This is too long. This is too much. Right? I want to send, I want to have euro, I want to exchange. Ideally, you just have like 1 or 2 words, right? Sync, backup, sharing. This is beautiful, right? This is really good. And then you have your key competitors. Then you put yourself usually in the first column, right? And then you put your competitors and you just want to show, right? That and so I've seen some wrong ways to use that slide by having a lot of text here in each cell. And then they would go on and explain, you know, how they are different. And then the slide is monstrous, monstrously heavy. No, just put like a check mark. Like the goal is visually just to see how you differentiate yourself very, very quickly in a few seconds, right? All right. All right, so here are a few examples, right? So Banu is over here, advanced tech and IoT. And so they combine the competitive positioning chart with a quick list, like a few bullet points about the key features they have. All right, so again, reach, similar, competitive positioning charts, right, with all the competitors. I like that they put their competitors in gray. That makes it way easier to digest, right? So that's really cool tip. If the differentiator is quantitative over qualitative, is there any suggestion for the competitors' metrics? Okay, great question. Can you explain to me a little bit more, like how? So what is the quantity?
Absolutely. So essentially for us at Bizu, we help reduce the HVAC consumption by 30%. Some of the other competitors that we have tried to reduce it by 10 or 15%. At the same time, we also help improve the air quality somewhere around 60 to 65%. Again, like competitors are not able to reduce that high of a percentage. So these are the few key advantages that we have. And I was just wondering, how shall we present it over a competitive matrix? Should we have more like more of a color grading to display that we are on the higher savings end, or should we just mention numerically that the savings that we provide are higher than the competitors?
Okay, great. I can think of a few different ways. One, you could have it as one of your 2 axes, and you could show, right, that your competitor is half as good as you, and so yeah, you're twice better than them, right? So you could show like this, you know, visually, you know, through the positioning on the chart. On this one, you can show it by. So quite often here it's non-binary, and that's the case here. It's not like, you know, yes or no. You can then show like circles with, you know, that are more or less full. And here you see this one, for example. Well, actually, no, maybe this means something different. So like, for example, if a company does something really well, then you could have, you know, like a full circle for them. If they don't do it at all, then it's no circle or maybe like a cross. But for companies that are halfway, maybe you should like a semicircle. And some that are really bad, like just like a quarter of a circle, or if they're good, like 3/4. I've seen that, right? So using like quarters of a circle to show how good, you know, to help to quantify. Ideally, so to answer your second question, ideally no numbers here. I mean, you can test, and you can maybe also adapt to the audience. If you believe that, you know, you present it to an audience that for whom this number is really important, they're gonna understand, they know the numbers, and it's going to be really important for them, it's going to really sell, then yeah, show it. I think like at least for the demo day, I would recommend not to. Most will not probably be knowledgeable about, you know, what is a good number, what is a bad one. And you can just show like, you know, like qualitatively, like, you know, how good it is compared to others, right? With that. Right? Yeah. Yeah, you could also like have a different. So these are the typical ones to show, right? These two, but you could also like maybe show like bar chart, you know, like this is company, this is us, right? You could have like bar charts, you could have different ways depending on the rest of the information you want to portray. Okay. All right, so here's an example with the list of features and comparing them to your competitors. Yeah, right. That's it for the competitors. Next is revenue model unit economics slide. All right. So here, what you want to do is want to explain how you're going to make money, and or talk about the unit economics. Right. So unit economics is looking at the you know, you just look at one transaction. You know, what are going to be the total revenues on that transaction, and what are going to be the costs for you to complete that transaction. Right? Unit economics can be extremely helpful for some business models to understand, you know, the clear picture, to understand the profitability, etc. Right. So up to you to choose whether you want to represent more of the revenue model or unit economics or both. This is Airbnb, right? Revenue model, 10% commission on each transaction, right? Super easy. And here they show you a few key numbers to help to understand, right? So they're going to have 15% of the available market, which gives them, so that goes back to the Tamsam sum, right? So they do a little bit of Tamsam sum here, bit of the information that should be in the market slide. It's fine. And then they give you the hypothesis, right? So $80 per night at times 3 nights, and then they get 10% of that, and that gives you, you know, the average fee per transaction, so unit economics, and the total revenue projected, right, in the year. This is, yeah, I really like that. I really like that kind of graph where it helps you to, you know, it dissects your total revenues into the different components, and it shows how profitable you're going to be. You could do that showing your unit economics on one transaction, or you could do that at the scale of your whole company. So here they did that for the whole company, right? So all the transactions, the commissions, doctor consultations, glucometers, technology costs, and that leaves you with 41% gross margin. Right? That's a really nice way to represent, you know, all the details and intricacies of the revenue model. So unit economics, you know, for the so like split dissecting the whole financials. Right. You can also have like a financial forecast slide. This is probably the most common type. Right. So usually you want to show here the hockey stick. Ideally you want to show like a clear progression, right? Not just that you have revenues, but you know, the story of how your revenues are progressing fast, and if they are not, you know, the story of how, you know, to explain why maybe they have, you know, been a bit more stable for a while. Okay, so standard format, the hockey stick, or a table, right? If it's a table, very, very light, right? Avoid this. That is not something you want to show in a demo day. So just like a few years, 3, 4, 5 years, right? Not 2, not 10. I mean, 3, 4, 5 columns. You could show year 10, right? Maybe you show like year 1, year 2, year 5, year 10. Right? That can be very useful as well, right? If you are in a working on a model that takes a lot of time until it's going to become profitable, for example. Ideally, just 3 lines. You know, maybe your hypothesis, you know, was going to drive your growth, right? So here's going to be the number of users, the revenues, your net income, right? That's all you need. Right? Don't do anything too complicated over here. Right? You can combine this slide, your financial forecast, with your revenue model. If you think, you know, that, you know, it connects well. And, the goal again here is just to pick the interest, is to excite, right? The investors, not to give everything, right? So it's totally fine to be very, very light. But be ready to send your hypothesis when being asked, right? Your financial forecasts, your hypothesis to explain by email, right, to the potential investors interested. Here's another way to represent it. So your revenues and the percentage of net profit, right, throughout the years. That's so really clean. Here they combined 2 things. Well, I mean, it's just again like revenue and gross profit. Yeah. And a few more elements, right, to represent the growth in traction, right? Starting from 2 communities in 2023 to 10, more than 10 in 2027. Yeah, here's one that presents 2 graphs. Here are their hypotheses, right? So traction by growth in number of users, and how does it translate into growth in revenues and in profits? It could be a bit challenging to represent both your, you know, user growth and revenue growth in the same. So feel free to split into like that if it helps. All right, next one, traction. And I think we're more than halfway. Yeah, we're on 2/3 of the presentation. It is a bit hard to digest sometimes. I hope you're still not sleepy. So traction slide, progress slide, achievements. So here the goal is really to present your 2 to 3 key metrics. Don't present too many. The biggest issue that I see in this kind of slides is trying to say everything. Again, you just want to wow. You just want to pick the most valuable points. If you talk about too much, like too many things, then it's just going to dilute, you know, that wow effect. All right. So the best traction is first going to be typically, right? So for impact, is going to be like your main impact metrics. For the financial metrics, is going to be your revenues and your revenue growth, right? Like showing that hockey stick, ideally. If you don't have strong revenues, then move to the next most impactful traction metric, right? So it's going to be maybe your number of customers, right? Or visitors, users, clients, downloads. Maybe it's going to be the engagement, the loyalty you have. Maybe if you don't have them, okay, you do have them, but like for those who don't, it's going to be like other things like calculative experiments, contracts, partnerships, prizes, surveys, etc. For you, I think you can focus on revenues and your impact metrics, right? Where we are now, okay, so here's a good example. Just a little bit too much, right? You probably don't need 5 numbers. It's maybe you just like pick the 2, 3 main ones, but it's a very beautiful slide, so that's why I show it. This one wanted to show that traction and progress through a timeline, right? This is a great idea as well. When you do a timeline slide, just be careful not to have too much information in each date, right? So here you see they have like 2, 3, 4 words, right? This is very, very lean. This one, 4 metrics, and then they explain them. Just really neat. All right. Okay, moving on to the impact slide, right? So impact slide, you want to show your SDGs. You want to show, so same, so this can replace, right, the previous one, right? So what impact have you reached with a few numbers? Again, here, I think it's a little bit too much, right? So 6 numbers, you probably don't need that many. Okay, I just have one example for this one. I just really recommend to show your SDGs right over here. And again, right, just a few key numbers and really, really brief explanation of what these numbers are. You're going to have a lot of support throughout this year on your impact slide, right? So that's also why I keep it a bit light. We have a lot of support from your IMM mentors that will not only help you to clarify your strategy, but also how to present your impact slide, right? So that's also why we're not going to spend too much time on this. Your roadmap, your execution slide, your go-to-market strategy, what does it typically contain? So ideally, your go-to-market strategy, how are you going to acquire your customers, or how do you acquire them? What are the best channels? What's your roadmap, your implementation roadmap from now on, your strategy for growth, for expansion? And of course, it should be like very customized, right? Like not too generic, like, go viral on social media. I like these 2 examples. So this one, like showing like 3 key phases, right? Search product market fit, search for repeatable and scalable model, and then scale, right? And then you have like all the different smaller components here. Airbnb, it was so they presented the 3 key channels for them to acquire customers by organizing events, by having partnerships, and on Craigslist, right? This company represented like that. With that, I really like this. It's just too many numbers again, right? You have 3 numbers here, 3 in red here, and 3 and many more, like 6 in green, and then you have the dates, and then you have like 4 more. Okay, it's just way too much. Keep it a bit lighter, but still very beautiful. This one was really, they had a really complex business model. They struggled a bit on how to represent it visually. And I think that really like helped a lot to explain. They had like 2-sided marketplace. So they had to explain like for the buyer, for the seller. All right. Okay, and that's the last main type of slides, the team slide. All right, the team slide, I recommend the following. 1, photos of yourself, right? You should definitely show your faces. The photos should be as consistent as possible. I'm going to show you a few ways to do that. To me, this is quite bad because they are not consistent, right? There are a lot of things we can do particularly nowadays with all like easy image processing. You could remove the background. You could give it like a certain shape, right? Like maybe at least rounded corners, maybe like circular, maybe like maybe you put actually a circle behind them, right? The lighting is very different, very lit up, very dark. The orientation of the faces is different. Try to be as consistent as possible. An easy way, for example, like they could like just like flip the picture for him, looking in the same direction is already a little bit of consistency. So consistency in the photos. I'm going to show you a few examples later on as well, right? In size, in shape, in the zoom, right? Sometimes I see some that are very zoomed in on one person's face, and then the next person is very zoomed out, and you see them, like the all the top half have the same. At least they're consistent in zoom here, right? And you need, Ronak, go ahead.
So essentially, in this team image, we have the second sentence as Dave and Tony were roommates, and they had a prior story of working together. So, do you think it would be better to have that story how the co-founders met or how the core team met on the team slide itself, or is it better to convey it in the pitch that the founders are doing?
Okay, great question. I would say it really depends on what you have to say. Ideally, so again, like there's a bit of a prioritization in, like for the traction slide. The most exciting thing you can say about this slide is that everyone is an A player, right? Like they are, the CEO maybe already built a company and exited it. The CFO, had a similar role, like managed the finances of a large group, or the CTO, coded the product for a startup that became quite big, etc. Right? So these are gonna be the most valuable points. I would say you would want to add it, like how they met into the slide if you don't have a lot of wow things to say about the team. Right? It could be very valuable to say orally. To write it, I would say preferably you have like other things to say about each of them, how much experience they have in the sector they tackle, maybe experience they have in previous startups and scale-ups, and or just like adjacent industries. Right. So yeah, these are typically going to be like so you prioritize the importance of the information to show. And if that's the most interesting thing to say about them, you definitely mention that. It is, by the way, a really good plus, right? So in any case, even if you don't write it down, it's great to mention it orally if you have time. And maybe for the second meeting, if you don't have time for the first meeting. But yeah, that's definitely something that investors like, that the team of co-founders, has known each other for a long time, has worked together. Yeah, that's really good. All right, typically here we just have like 3 types of information. We just have the name of the person, their position and title, and a few bullet points that act as credibility statements about them, right? So like I mentioned earlier, like what did you do? Only bullet points that are relevant to the position of the person, right? So for example, CEO, 10 years in management, managing a team of more than 20, right? 5 years of accounting is not going to be relevant for the CTO. Skip that, right? It's going to be actually a bit confusing even, right? So only bullet points, just a few words each that are relevant to the position of the person, right? And the goal is to answer, why are you the best at this position? Why is Russ the best as a CEO for that company? I forgot which one it is. Right, so Stanford BS and co-founder at Pursuit.com, which got acquired, so he got an exit, right? That's really big, etc., etc. Yeah, I think there was a Dropbox that slide. Okay, if you have too much information about the companies you worked in, put their logos, right? Ideally recognizable logos is going to be even better, but even if they're not really recognizable, it's fine. A logo will help you like to remove all these words from the slide. So I recommend like typically this kind of structure, right? The photo for each of the founders, maybe a bit of design behind them to again like help make it consistent. Name, title, and 2 to 3 bullet points, and your logos underneath, right? It could be as simple as that, right? I really like what they did here. They cut the backgrounds behind each of them. As you can see also, the zooms are pretty much the same. The positions, the postures, the lighting are very similar, except for the advisor here, who's a bit zoomed out, but it's an advisor and a co-founder, so it's okay. I like what they did with the colors, with the that small design behind them. It's really nice, so that they pop out of the frame. Right? It looks really nice. The name, the position, and 2 to 3 bullet points about each of them. Really concise again, right? 6Y plus in software engineering, right? And then the logos next to it. I really like it. And so quite a few of you are probably going to have like a list of advisors. I think that's a nice way to represent them, having your advisors on the side, on the right side, right, vertically. Right, really beautiful slide for the team. Here's another one. Same board of advisors on the right-hand side. For the board of advisors, definitely you don't have as much space, right? So the photos, the explanation, way shorter. You can usually skip the bullet points for them, right? Or you just have like a few words. If like someone is a rock star in your industry, just mention it, of course. Else like just like talk about how are they gonna help you, right? So Budi is gonna help on operations and investments, etc. Right, again, like they remove the background, they have this circle behind, very consistent look and feel, posture and zoom, and all right, really good example. Here's another one saying like the designs, again they remove the background, a very similar posture. This is great, yeah. Simpler but still very good. Here they have so advisors and a team. So if you have, I definitely recommend as well to mention the team that you have, right? Underneath like that, this is awesome. Right? They have 15 employees, 12 women, 3 men. This is a great way to represent it, right? 4 full-time, 7 part-time, 5 interns. And this is a really nice way to talk about your team. You could also put like very small circles to represent their photos, right? Could be helpful as well. But if you don't want to have too many elements, this is really good. Right? You see that one thing that's missing here is just like the 2 bullet points. I think it would be, they just add that and that would be perfect. Okay, we're reaching the end of that session with the last, well, second to last, because the last one is going to be the thank you slide, the ask. Right, the ask typically comes at the end, right? Here's extremely simple. Just say like what you want, right? And maybe you're raising, equity. So, how much, what's the amount you're raising for what percentage? And typically you mention the use of funds. Right? Optionally, you can also talk about your runway, right? So we're raising 500K to last 12 months, or 18 months or. And optionally, you can also mention the traction you want to reach with this investment, right? These investments will help us to reach that impact, to better the lives of X, thousands of people in your community, etc. Right? I love this one. Extremely simple. 250K pre-seed, 12 months runway, right? And the use of fund here with that beautiful, right? The colors are really gorgeous. The complementary, this is great. Very simple, even simplistic slide. This one really great as well. Beautiful gradient, right? How are you going to use the funds? Mostly working capital, sales and marketing, a little bit on the product, raising 20K, 1 year runway. They have the 3 types of information in just a few words, right? That's really great. Okay. And the very last one, the thank you slide, right? So thank you and your contact details, your call to action, right? And that's it. And a repeat of the tagline, right, from the first slide is going to be great. And that's it. All right. So Natura, together we can improve people's welfare and save the environment, and the contact information. Banu again, right? They remind you of the tagline. It's not replacing, it's augmenting farmers' intelligence, right? With the QR code as a call to action. And that's it, right? That's it for the examples I have. All right, this is the last slide for today. So we finished quite early. I'm going to stay if you have any question, if you want to spend a bit of time together as well, anything, maybe you want to talk about the program. But so what are the next steps? So I strongly recommend you to use that session to update your pitch deck. And again, like I said at the beginning, maybe you think that you already know all of that. I strongly encourage you, if you think this way, to still look at your slide from a different perspective, from putting a bit of distance and try to see like, did you do like everything that we mentioned today? Can you improve? Can you shorten the text? Can you improve the clarity? Maybe try to look at your deck from a different perspective, thinking, what are the key things that an investor would like to know? Would be, how would I best convince an investor to give me that second meeting, what would I have to say about that typical slide, to wow the investors, right, to secure the meeting, right? So again, market that is big and is growing. Problem that it's massively painful problem. Solution that it addresses the problem really well, et cetera, et cetera. So like try to have a second reading of your pitch deck and challenge yourself a little bit. Then update it. And if you want to do a review together, we have live deck reviews, 2 sessions that are going to be organized in the coming weeks. All right. So Andrea will get back to you with a list of the 2 slots, the 2 sessions that we're going to open for you. These ones you need to book in order to be part of it. And we're going to spend like 10-15 minutes per company, per pitch deck, and review it together. And right, just do that, like maybe like 4 to 6 of you, 4 to 6 ventures in one session. We're going to review it together. And then we're going to do a second session for that. We're going to have more sessions like this later this year as well. Okay, so update your deck. If you want to review book 1, and yeah, you can already start the fundraising. We have more sessions coming, and that's it. All right, any question for me? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. I heard someone. Okay, where can one book the slots? So Andrea is going to send the links in either a link, or you just like send Andrea like a quick message in WhatsApp. So Andrea is going to follow up on that in WhatsApp. What is the preferred way to send the deck? So ideally you have it on a link and you just send us the link, right? And the link is just going to be right, like a Canva or Google Slides, right? And this way you always have like, it's always better to send the link to the most updated deck you have rather than to send a file, like by email, etc. It's heavy, it clutters, it's always going to be outdated, etc. Right? So I strongly recommend to create your deck in Google Slides. Honestly, Google Slides is really good for that. A lot of people love Canva. Canva is great as well. As a quick note, Google Slides just integrated a few features that Canva does really well, where you can like have like a library of elements on the right-hand side. I think it's just started a few days ago in Google Slides. Anyway, that's a cool feature. So, by the way, something really nice with Google Slides is you can, so like take this presentation, right? So quick tip, if you want to create your pitch deck in Google Slides, do this. Remove everything that comes after edit, replace it with present. And whenever you send that link, it will send the presentation mode of your slide to someone, right? And then you can like shorten that that link, right, with a bit.ly or like other, and that gives you like, for example, for Cretella, we did like bit.ly/Cretella presentation, right? And what we do is, so you click on this link, that gives you the most updated deck of Cretella. So I strongly recommend that, so that you only just have to send one short link, and whoever opens it will always have the most updated version. Of course, if you update the pitch deck, depending on your audience, right, it's a bit more difficult to do that. All right. Did I answer your question? So yeah, preferably a direct link. If not, yeah, whatever. So preferably Google Slide or Canva. But if you only have like if you worked on let's say a PowerPoint, then yeah, send it as a PDF. PowerPoint has formatting issues when you open it in different versions of PowerPoint. If you open it in, so I don't recommend. First, I don't recommend you to use PowerPoint. Use preferably Google Slides or Canva. And if you send a file, if you really have to send a file, you cannot put it on then I strongly recommend to send it as a PDF, not as a PowerPoint. Right? So preferably Canva, Google Slides, else PDF, and last PowerPoint. Yeah. Is a data room essential for a seed stage venture? I would say yes. It's a great question that we can keep maybe for a session. We're gonna have a session on data room. I think I would need to understand, the circumstances of your question to better answer you. But I propose to discuss that during the data room session we're gonna have later on. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right, it's the end of the session. If you want to stay, I'm going to remain here if you want to ask me questions. Else, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great evening. And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Guillaume. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Wait, does anyone have any question for me? Or is it all good and we can stop the call?
Good. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Adi. See you soon. All good. All right. Well, then, if there's no question, we're going to stop the call here. Thank you so much, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey.